Hi, Drizzle. So thank you for joining us today. We're very happy to have you here to share more about Reggio Emilia and how it's done specifically in Singapore and share it with our friends over in Vietnam. So without wasting more time, maybe you can just give a slight introduction to what Reggio Emilia is.
Okay, first off, hi Brian. It's good to be here. And hi to everybody in Vietnam. And let's start. So, Reggio Emilia. First, to understand what Reggio Emilia is all about, you need to first understand that Reggio Emilia is a province situated in the northern part of Italy. So, for those of you who have been so lucky and blessed to be able to travel, not during COVID times, maybe previously. And if you have visited northern Italy, you would probably heard of this little very beautiful village called Reggio Emilia. Of it that really started this Reggio Emilia approach. The history of how this education philosophy came about, it started back in World War II. So after the war, the men came back and, after fighting war for a while, they're injured and you have a town to be built. And so the town city, they were talking about it and they realized that, we need to start thinking about building all these church towers and all these town banks and factories. You know what? The men are injured. We ladies have to come and build the town. So who's going to watch our children? So, at that point of time, education was seen equally as important as rebuilding because the children's future matters. So together, the parents and the villagers from the town, they came together to develop this new model, the Reggio Emilia approach. And it's led by Lori Malaguchi, an educator. Their original idea is to really enhance all their children's learning through real life experiences. So it's no longer a fixed curriculum. It's something that is so empowering so that every child that goes through this education approach, they will develop this love for discovery and from there form their own personality where they not just grow with skills and knowledge, but they actually grow to be people who learn how to respect each other. And I think that's so beautiful about that. It's actually provided by the community. So this is how Reggio Emilia all started.
Right, I just got goosebumps because it's such a community-driven approach. I feel like it's not just like a curriculum in that way. So I think it's pretty cool. I mean, it's my first time hearing about it. I work in the preschool industry and I've heard about it, but I think in detail, I think it's so interesting to hear. So like you're talking about it as the approach, right? So would you call it more of a approach, a curriculum, or a teaching methodology, or what would you classify as more of an approach?
So if you're looking at it, I would say it's a philosophy. It is a strong belief that everyone, not just the teachers, the parents, the village, the whole entire town, they all hold on dear to this belief that children are competent individuals. And I think that's what makes a big difference back then. I think if you look at our society nowadays, even then within a society itself, you will have divided belief. Some might think that children, they need a lot of hand holding, they need a lot of bubble wrapping, and that's our society nowadays.
Yes.
But you will have another group of parents who say, oh, my children can be very independent, go ahead. And this particular approach in Reggio Emilia, they believe that children are competent individuals, that every single one of them have the potential to develop, and the children, are the one with the rights to actually dictate what they want to learn or what kind of relationship they want to develop or what kind of curriculum they want. So this is something that you might not have seen it in most educational institutes, or you will not see it in a lot of preschools, and that's what set Reggio Emilia apart.
So talking about that as well, what are the principles of Reggio Emilia? I'm sure
Sure. So we addressed the issue about how our children are raised or seen as competent individual. So when you look at them as someone who has such a big say in determining where and which direction the whole curriculum is going to be driven towards, this is when you actually need the children to come on board. Your curriculum cannot be pre-planned. You need the children's discussion. They need to come together. They need to meet. And when the children meet, they start having discussion, they talk, and the teachers come in to assess. So when I talk about assessment for their own learning, it can be driven by maybe their interests. For the very, very young children who may not be able to articulate themselves yet, the teachers will have to follow their interests to help them stay connected with each other, to be moving in the same direction with learning. With the older children, perhaps with the environment set up by the teachers, they can showcase what they have already acquired knowledge and skills previously, so where their current developmental level is at, before they move towards as a group to the next level, where they explore with other skills, other interesting facts that they may not have heard of yet. So these little projects are, what's driven out of this Reggio Emilia curriculum.
Cool. I like that. I mean, I'm still kind of tied down to the fact that you're giving children this opportunity to really have a sense of purpose. A lot of times you were saying like children these days are, bubble wrap. You're given so many like, I would say in Malay we call it manja, which means we pamper them so much, right? We give them, we protect them. And, we're not saying it's bad, I mean, that's how society and culture and education is now. But I think hearing what you just said and kind of linking it to the approach, it's so special and so unique. And I think it gives children today that sense of, me, like I have my right to do this and I want to be involved in my discussion. And I may not have the right words now, but my teachers are there, I'm in the right environment. And yeah, I really like that. So talking a little bit more about environment. So is there a specific way Reggio Emilia is designed to be in the classroom, and really what are the goals of Reggio Emilia?
So when you look at a Reggio Emilia classroom, when you step into one, so when I talk about Reggio Emilia classroom, now I'm referring to the ones back in Reggio Emilia, the town itself. In one of those Reggio schools, you will see that they all have these 3 core guidelines that is enforced when they are setting up a school, setting up an environment, may it be indoors or outside. First of all Reggio classroom and schools have to be welcoming. Now, welcoming is such a simple word, but welcoming speaks a lot. When you welcome a child into a school, furniture's at their level, where they can independently feel like I'm not in a daunting place. The furnitures are taller than me. Everything is so high up. It's scary for them. And for parents, now we live in such an international society. Some parents may be immigrants or, expats. When they go into a new country, they feel worried too. So in our context in Singapore, we have people from different culture. So this welcoming effect helps not just the children, but their family. And that's so important, because if my mommy feels welcome, my mommy feels good, confident about this school, I should feel confident too.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the second one will be actually the fact on nurturing. This environment, does it provide you with this safe place that I feel that I'm being taken care of? Are there sharp edges everywhere that I have to be looked out for? Are my teachers very fierce looking? Are my teachers warm? Are the colors used a bright red wall? Oh wow, that's going to give me a headache. Is it supposed to be warm and soft color that makes me feel at ease when I step in here? And last but not least, because this is a community so closely knitted to support the children's learning, they want them to know that every one of us is here to help you learn. So we are all here together like family. We are all a part of your learning journey. So home-like environment, a safe environment, a familiar environment is so crucial in ensuring that the children feel that this is not a strange place. This is one that I'm familiar with. This is one that I can connect with. So a home-like environment, it can be something like maybe a little quiet, cozy corner you know.
Mm.
So something like what you might find at home, where they want to, you know, cuddle with a book, with a teddy bear. It might be a piazza, which is not exactly in your home. A piazza is a common meeting place in Italy. You see that a lot in
Okay.
their
Yes.
squares. And it's
Yes.
not just in Reggio Emilia, but all over Italy. They call it the piazza. So the piazza is where people come from all occupation and they just say, good morning, how are you? And that's when they talk. So they
Oh.
have a piazza there in their classroom where it doesn't matter which age group you are. You get to meet people from all over the classes and you get to talk and you get to play, you get to interact, you get to present your ideas. And this is so familiar to even the outside setting that they no longer feel like I'm coming to a strange place.
Oh,
These are the
yeah.
three big classroom guidelines, I would say, when it comes to a Reggio Emilia school. Yeah.
So I'll just like summarize it. So like if I were to design a Reggio Emilia school, okay, number one, correct me if I'm wrong. Number one, it should be welcoming. Everyone,
Okay.
parents and child should be welcome. They should feel like they are entering a safe space, a welcoming space, so that my children and I, as a parent, can feel belong in the community. So that's number
Yes.
one. Number two, it should be a nurturing environment, correct? So having that sense where children feel like they can be comfortable in their own skin, in their own space, being nurtured by the best of the best, and people who really understand them. And I think lastly, I just slipped out of my mind. I think the last
Home-like environment.
home-like
Yes.
environment. So I would say environment. So having that really cozy environment. I think all schools are capable to do that. I think it should be prioritized in a lot of many things that Reggio Emilia are kind of teaching. So I think that's really cool. I really like that.
Definitely. So,
Yeah.
I guess if I were to top it up, what
Mm.
sets Reggio Emilia a little bit different from what you might find in some schools who are capable to do all three of the above listed points would be the fact that in a Reggio Emilia classroom, you also have a rich array of materials. So
Mm.
I'm not talking about like a junkyard kind of material, but
Yeah.
they actually do have a special place, a special corner, a special room just filled with materials. So in this particular resource room, it's called a Remedia Center. Now in
Remedia.
Reggio Emilia itself, in the town itself, they have a huge Remedia Center, but within each school, they have one of their own. Now, how the Remedia Center works is that because the whole community is supporting everybody in their curriculum, in their resources, in their material, it may be a locksmith, who are working on keys. Oh, I made a mistake with this key. Now it's useless to me, so I'm going to donate it. And with this bunch of keys, children might be doing art and craft. So he'll donate it to the Remedia Center, and you have this whole shelf full of keys of different sizes, different shapes. You have a Prada shop, Italy, you know. They have all these cloth tags. They don't need the cloth tags, and they do donate them. It may be red tags, blue tags, green tags, and the children use it for patterning, for math patterning. And once again, they donated another shelf full of it in the Remedia Center. So the Reggio Emilia classroom, you will never not find all this tinkering, all these interesting materials everywhere in the classroom. You have materials that can create shadows. You have material that can create art that can be used for class to create construction. And you have them all over the school because they were all donated by the people in the society, in the community. Yes.
Wow.
And that is something that is so interesting that you probably would not find
No,
everywhere else. Yes.
I've never seen.
But
Cool.
this is really rich, real material. The other thing can I just add on is that remember how I was telling you about the home environment? Now, we need to remember Reggio Emilia approach comes from Reggio Emilia. So it is true to Reggio Emilia, their place, their society, their culture plays a huge role to make it their home. So one good thing about the Italian, I would say, belief, their family core value is food. It's so important. You always see this, and you always hear this, that food is like the essence of life for them. And they take pride in that. So in every Reggio Emilia school, you will always have a huge kitchen. And in the kitchen, They have a big window. And their chef, their cook, we call them aunties in Singapore context. They are seen as teachers. They are also a partner in the children's learning. How is she washing her hand before preparing my meal? That's learning about hygiene. How is she being careful while using the knives? So with that, huge windows, you can see anything that's happening outside your school, anything that is happening within your school. And that's something that is so interesting about them.
Okay, yeah. We spoke a little bit about goals. Perhaps you can share more about what are the goals that Reggio Emilia tries to kind of implement to kids today? Or like, is there a certain thing that how do you evaluate them per se?
Okay, well, I would say that when we look at goals for any education philosophy, is what we hope to achieve out of it at the end of the day. We have set goals for different education approach. And when Laurie Malaguchi, when he developed the Reggio Emilia approach, his main goals is always child-centered curriculum as a base. So the children, at the end of the day, they need to feel and they are being treated as active participants in their own learning. So the only way Reggio Emilia can be achieved, the concept or the education philosophy, the only way it can be achieved is that if children are active participants in their own learning. And by that, it means that children are able to have a say in what they want to do at the end of the day. And children are able to dictate what kind of direction they want to take. Now, the learning itself is a process, it's a journey. It doesn't just come to an end once you acquire a certain skills. So the children, after they represent their learning, and learnings are usually represented in various ways. So some of our education approach might say that, oh, children, to show me that you have learned this math skills, you must be able to count 1 to 10. In Reggio Emilia approach, they believe that children can represent their learning in 100 languages. And that's where the saying that children learn with and represent their knowledge with 100 language. And it can be forming a sculpture, it can be forming an artwork, it can be done through cookery, it can be done through a dramatic play or music piece. Children can share their learning in any ways. So this goal here allows the teachers and children to have the freedom of representing their learning in any way possible based on their own ability and interest and preference. Of course, with the goal of Reggio Emilia, we also hope that the 3 teachers in the picture will actually all come together to support the child in achieving a holistic development. Now, the 3 teachers that we are probably going to talk about more about later is actually the teacher itself. The child is the second teacher. Now, we hear of parents being the first teacher, the teacher being the second teacher, like that, yeah. But no, the teacher is actually the real teacher, and the children, they are the second teacher. And then for the third, the most important one, instead of the parents, is actually the environment. So this is actually how the Reggio approach view the 3 teachers: the educator, children, and environment.
So yes, you were talking about the 3 teachers. So there is the teacher itself, the child, which is very interesting, and lastly, the environment. We always hear people saying that, environment shapes a kid, which is true, but I think perhaps you can elaborate more about the role of the teacher, the student, and the most unique one, the environment.
Sure. So let's talk about the educator's role first. Now, when you look at a typical, let's say a project that takes place in the Reggio Emilia school, what usually starts off is a teacher in the picture as an observer. So when I talk about observing, I don't mean going in, playing with the children. They're really an observer. They take a step back, a silent role, and they start documenting the children's speech, the children's interest, the children's development. And from there, what they do is they are given non-contact time. So they are given time away from the children in the afternoon to come together after school in a group. And the group consists of a art specialist, arterialista, a curriculum specialist, and these two teachers, they would come together, sometimes more. They will share their observations about the children. They will plan what might be offered to the children next. And of course, when they are planning what is offered, it's not a planned lesson plan. What they are planning is what kind of materials can I put in the environment to further provocate this inquiry, this interest, this learning, or what can I put to challenge them to take it a little further. Or because the children keep talking about what's going on outside, the pandemic, say for example, a mask, where can I get a array of masks, different kind of masks, display in the class, just so that we can have a talking point. So this kind of discussion at the back scene will take place, and the children will then be able to have a child-initiated activity the next day in their environment. Now, the teacher will then challenge and provocate ideas by asking children open-ended questions. An example would be this child say, "Oh, I like this mask more than the other mask. Why?" Now, an open-ended question has no right or wrong answer. By challenging them with an open-ended question, you are respecting them by accepting any answers they give to you. And at the same time, you're letting them know that what you say is of value, and I respect that. And you are just as much of a partner in this learning journey as I am. The children might come up with their own ideas. They might, because it has a baguette on it, or it has a croissant on it. I love croissant, so I wonder if I have that. Perhaps that could be, And then, you know what? We have to respect children's idea, and respecting children's idea would be the teacher's role then. They will allow the children to represent their own thinking, and they might say, how can we encourage people to wear more masks? They might say, let's draw all their favorite food on their mask.
Yeah.
And you know what? That would make
That's
sense.
Genius.
If you like that, why won't you do that? So allowing children to voice out their opinion, it gives them this ability to think that I am a problem solver too. Yeah, and I think that's so valuable that the teachers, you are taking such an active role in letting the children know that there is no such thing as a wrong answer. And if you do make a mistake, it's okay. We learn from them. Let's move on and see where else we can head towards. And that whole journey itself would then be observed, documented, tracked, assessed, and then the teachers will come together again and then decide what kind of roles or what kind of environment setup they need to enhance on or take on so that they can facilitate the children further. So this is what the teacher's role is all about: observing, coming to facilitate, observing, review, facilitate, and that's all that is for a teacher there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then the last one is then the environment itself.
Yes. So for the environment as the third teacher, like I said, the materials that's in the environment, it is set up, it is provided to inspire the children. Now, when we set up all these materials, some of the materials seen might be deemed as dangerous or controversial, but it is really more of why do you set it up in such a way? When you set up the environment for the third teacher, it is a setting that will allow children to encounter and connect. It is a place that will allow for interaction and dialogue. Now, if this environment itself can spearhead this ongoing interaction, connection, dialogue and encounter and exploration for the children, the teacher no longer have to be there to tell them what to do. The environment itself will lead the children in their exploration and learning journey, which is why the environment is valued so highly as the third teacher.
I love it. Yeah, it's really, I'm so inspired just hearing it, and it's so cool to know more in detail. I'm sure our friends in Vietnam will definitely learn a bit more in here. If time, thank you for summarizing everything. Really thank you for sharing your thoughts and your professional views on what Reggio Emilia is. So this session will end, but then you will stick around and our friends will have Q&A sessions with you. But really, thank you for joining us today. We'll see you in a bit.
Right. Okay. welcome. Thank you.